The Indiana Fever should have been celebrating history. After nearly a decade without a playoff series win, the team finally broke the curse. The locker room should have been drenched in nothing but joy, champagne, and shouts of victory. Lexi Hull's clutch steal, Kelsey Mitchell's fearless scoring, and Aaliyah Boston's leadership should have owned the headlines. But in the WNBA, even triumph comes tangled in controversy. Because instead of celebrating resilience, grit, and a season-defining moment, the spotlight turned to a bizarre confrontation that nobody saw coming, one that left fans asking whether the league is deliberately sabotaging its own stars. At the center of it all stood Sophie Cunningham. Injured, her right leg strapped in a bulky brace, she wasn't dressed to play. She wasn't charging into a scrum or storming the court in chaos. She was doing what any teammate would do, standing near midcourt. And then it happened. A league-hired security guard, instead of focusing on crowd control or actual threats, marched straight toward Sophie and barked at her like she was some intruder. The image was jarring. Sophie, clearly injured, limping, unable to sprint even if she wanted to, facing down an aggressive security guard who seemed determined to escalate an issue. Fans watching live blinked in disbelief. Was this really happening? Was the WNBA about to turn a playoff celebration into another fiasco? For Sophie, the answer was simple. She wasn't moving. Cameras caught the moment perfectly, her puzzled look morphing into irritation, then into the famous Cunningham glare. It was the kind of stare down that said, "Really? This is what you're doing right now?" Sophie didn't back down, didn't lash out, and didn't shrink away. She just stood her ground, arms folded, glaring as the security guard hovered, trying and failing to play sheriff. That defiance was all it took. Within minutes, clips flooded Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Sophie Cunningham injured in a brace. Standing still was suddenly trending for being treated like a threat in her own arena, and fans were furious. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Not because Sophie had overreacted, she hadn't. Not because she had escalated, she didn't. The outrage came because everyone could see it with their own eyes. This was unnecessary. This was harassment. This was part of a pattern. Sophie Cunningham has always been painted as the villain of the WNBA. She's outspoken. She's fiery. She refuses to shrink back or play nice for the cameras. She challenges narratives, doesn't conform to the league's curated image, and carries herself with unapologetic confidence. And for that, she's been treated differently. Rival fans boo her relentlessly. Media outlets label her the antagonist, and now, apparently, even league-hired staff are treating her like a problem. Think about the optics. The Indiana Fever had just survived the impossible. Caitlin Clark was sidelined. Half the rotation was gone. Sydney Colson, Chloe Baby, Dyrus Dantas, Ari McDonald, Sophie herself fall out. Yet somehow, Indiana pulled off the win. This was the moment to highlight resilience, to showcase women's basketball at its best. Instead, fans got the surreal image of Sophie in a brace, being leaned on by a security, as though she were about to storm the court. It was absurd, insulting, and revealing all at once, and fans weren't quiet about it. Comments flooded social media. Hashtags like #FreeSophie and #WNBAExposed trended within hours. People pointed out the obvious double standard. If Angel Reese had been in Sophie's spot, the narrative would have flipped. It would have been labeled passion, leadership, fire. If Paige Buchers had limped onto the floor to check on a teammate, it would have been painted as dedication and loyalty. But Sophie Cunningham? Suddenly it was a problem. That double standard hit fans like a slap. They weren't imagining it. They were watching it unfold in real time, and it wasn't just about Sophie. This confrontation tapped into a much bigger frustration: the WNBA's selective enforcement, selective outrage, and selective protection. Caitlin Clark has been living it since her rookie year, taking cheap shots. Lexi Hull made the play of her life with that game-sealing steal, yet the highlight was buried while drama dominated headlines. And now, Sophie Cunningham, injured and sidelined, was turned into a spectacle by the very people hired to protect her. Fans could see the pattern, and they were sick of it. Let's not sugarcoat what happened. Sophie was harassed. There was no scuffle, no violation, no rule broken. She was standing at midcourt with her teammates after a hard fall by Odyssey Sims, the security guard. For reasons no one has explained, decided to single her out. He leaned in, barked commands, treated her like she was some kind of danger. But Sophie did what Sophie always does. She didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. She didn't play the role they wanted her to. She stared, she clapped for her teammate, and she stood her ground. That's why the clip went viral. Because it wasn't drama she caused. It was drama the league created, and fans noticed. They pointed out the hypocrisy. They dragged Commissioner Kathy Engelbert across social media, blasting her leadership as weak, biased, and embarrassing. Some called for her resignation, saying the WNBA had turned into a circus act where controversies mattered more than basketball. Others pointed to the business side. How could a league begging for mainstream growth keep letting moments like this overshadow its product? And the worst part? This wasn't even new. Fans dug up receipts. Remember when Dejani Carrington had her run-in with officials? The league rushed to her defense. The Players Association rallied behind her. Media outlets painted her as a victim of unfair treatment. But when Sophie faced almost the exact same situation, silence. Not a word from leadership. Not a word from the league. Only fans calling out the hypocrisy. And that's the problem. The WNBA wants growth. They want respect. They want to pull in casual fans, the ones Caitlin Clark has brought in by the millions. But casual fans aren't stupid. They see the double standards. They see the favoritism. They see how stars like Clark and Sophie are mistreated, ignored, or actively antagonized. And instead of walking away impressed, they walk away convinced the league isn't serious. That's lethal for a sport trying to build credibility. Because make no mistake, Sophie Cunningham is good for business. She trends regularly on social media. Her interviews rack up views. Even her haters can't stop talking about her. She's polarizing, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. The kind of personality every league craves. But instead of embracing her, the WNBA treats her like baggage. Instead of leaning into her fire, they label her the villain. Instead of celebrating her presence, they minimize her impact, and fans are done pretending they don't see it. This incident, as small as it may seem, has become a case study in everything wrong with the WNBA's leadership. Selective enforcement, selective outrage, a willingness to protect some players while targeting others, a habit of letting drama overshadow basketball. And every time it happens, the league's credibility takes another hit. But here's the irony. Every time they try to silence Sophie, her popularity only grows. Fans rallied to her side, flooding her social media with messages of support. They turned her into the hero of the night. Not Lexi Hull, not Aaliyah Boston, not even Kelsey Mitchell. Sophie Cunningham, injured, sidelined in a brace, became the symbol of defiance, strength, and resilience. And then came her own response. Instead of ranting, instead of exploding, instead of handing the league more ammunition, Sophie brushed it off with humor. She joked about sweating through the game despite not playing. She poked fun at herself for being nervous. She kept it light, reminding everyone that she's in control of her own story. That's classic Sophie. And it's exactly why fans love her. The truth is simple. Sophie Cunningham was wronged. The WNBA embarrassed itself. And what should have been a night of celebration for the Indiana Fever became another viral fiasco. Fans aren't letting it slide. They're connecting the dots. They're calling out the league. They're demanding accountability. Because this wasn't just about a security guard barking at a player. This was about how the WNBA treats its stars. This was about how the league undermines its own product. This was about respect. And once again, the league got in its own way. So now the question lingers. Was Sophie Cunningham simply the victim of an overzealous security guard? Or was this part of the larger, more troubling pattern fans have been shouting about all season?